Guys, what's going on? I hope you guys are well. I hope you guys are staying safe. Guys, I want to put this video in two parts. Guys, it looks like Eddie Hearn said that Canelo Alvarez is fighting the best 175 pounder in the world. What's my take? What's my opinion on it? I think Canelo Alvarez is fighting a legitimate guy at 175. Is he the best? I don't think so personally. I think Beterbiev is the best guy at 175. But Canelo's really fighting somebody that a lot of people think that can beat him, and actually a lot of people think stylistically Bivol is a harder fight than Beterbiev. I disagree. I actually think Canelo's favors the Bivol type styles now. I think he's got used to fighting guys like that. I think Beterbiev's style is always going to be difficult for Canelo because he's a bigger, stronger man coming forward, and he's very powerful and he hits hard. That's always a hard style for anybody to fight, no matter what style you prefer. That sort of style, doesn't matter how good you are, that sort of style is always going to give you issues, especially when you're fighting a bigger guy, you're fighting a bigger, stronger man. That's always going to be dangerous. So, I disagree. I do think Beterbiev would beat Bivol. I do. I've always thought that. I said it to you guys before. I think Beterbiev hits very hard. And I think the only guy that can beat Beterbiev is probably Canelo. I don't think there's anyone else. I don't think Bivol will be able to keep Beterbiev off. Like, it's all good having good feet, but Beterbiev will get to you and put you in difficult positions. And he's a big guy. He's a strong guy. I just don't see Beterbiev being able to. I just don't see Bivol being able to keep Beterbiev off, and I think Beterbiev will stop Bivol. If I'm honest with you, that's just my opinion. Some people think other ways. Some people think Bivol will outbox Beterbiev, but I don't see it, man. Beterbiev is so strong. So, this is a very good amateur as well. This isn't a guy like people think that he's just. No, he's a very a decorated amateur. This is a guy that's had so many amateur fights. He's had a lot of amateur success. So, this isn't a guy that just is wild and comes forward. This is a good boxer as well. So, yeah, I think Beterbiev's size, strength, power would be too much for Bivol, in my opinion. But I think the only guy that can potentially beat Beterbiev is Canelo. Believe it or not, I don't think it's Bivol. I think he'll beat Beterbiev. So yeah, I don't think Bivol is the best guy, but Bivol is a legitimate top fighter, and I don't understand why people are trying to make out like this is a Canelo is fighting someone serious here. He's fighting somebody that is top draw, top tier. Canelo is fighting somebody top tier here. This is no joke. This is a real tough fight for Canelo Alvarez. A real tough fight, and one that like he said, he can easily lose this fight because Bivol is legitimate. Bivol is a top tier fighter, and if you're, like I said, if I've said this before, if you're a Canelo fan, you are worried about this fight because he's fighting a legitimate top guy. He's fighting a guy that could easily beat him. So yeah, I think you have to give Canelo a lot of credit. I would love to see the Beterbiev fight down the road sometime. I do think that's a cracking fight. I do. I actually think it's a great fight down the road. I think him and Beterbiev is one of the best fights in boxing that can be made. I think it's an unbelievable fight, and hopefully he fights him sooner rather than later because Beterbiev is no young spring chicken. He's an old guy. So yeah, I hope we get to see the Beterbiev fight down the road as well. I think that's the fight that I wanted to see more than any fight. But I give Canelo a lot of respect and credit for fighting Bivol, and he's doing it the hard way again. If he fights Bivol and then he wants to fight Beterbiev, he's fighting the two best guys in the division to clean it out. Remember Andre Ward? I want to touch on this. Andre Ward said Canelo should stay away from Beterbiev. Canelo should stay away from Beterbiev and Bivol. This is what Andre Ward said. And Canelo's jumping right into the fire. And you can make an argument, if Canelo beats Beterbiev and Bivol, Canelo's run at 175 pound masks anything that Ward's done, because Ward didn't fight. Ward fought Kovalev, and Kovalev was a great fighter, don't get me wrong, but if you look at like Canelo's beating Kovalev as well. Canelo's beating Kovalev, and then he'd be beating Bivol and Beterbiev, both guys in their prime, you'd have to say that he dwarfs anything that that Andre Ward did. I'd have to say that his wins at 175 would surpass Ward without question. You know, and Ward had a good win, just one win though. He didn't fight Stevenson. He didn't fight, you know, Canelo. If he beats Bivol and Beterbiev, he surpasses Ward, in my opinion. He surpasses Ward without question in terms of what he did at 168, 175. Because Canelo's cleaned out 168, and don't get me wrong, Ward had harder fights at 168. I think the fighters that Ward fought were better, but if Canelo beats Bivol and Beterbiev, then he outdoes anything Andre Ward did it at 160 and 168 and 175. For me, I think Canelo Alvarez would have surpassed anything that Andre Ward did. And that's just my honest, humble opinion. Listen, Ward was a great fighter, but I don't really think Ward had the competition. I think Ward, you know, should have probably looked to fight Stevenson. You know, that was a good fight. That would have been another tough fight. But I just think that Ward didn't really have enough elite competition. Neither does Canelo really, but Canelo has Bivol and Beterbiev, who I would consider definitely elite competition. I don't really think Ward had that. I don't think Ward had that 168, 175. Yeah, he had Kovalev, which he fought and he beat twice. I didn't think he won the first fight. You see, that's another thing a lot of people don't realize, is that for me, Andre Ward didn't win the first fight against Sergey Kovalev. So that really is a question mark for me, your legacy, because I think he lost that fight. Yeah, don't get me wrong, he came back in the rematch and beat him and stopped Kovalev. And you have to give Ward a lot of credit for that. But at the same time, I still don't think that you know, he beat Kovalev the first time. That's just my honest opinion, and I'm pretty sure others may see it the other way. Some people may think that you know, that Ward did win, but I just think that Kovalev won the first fight, and that would have changed Andre's legacy. If he had lost that fight, which I think he should have done, that would have changed. Even though he came back and won, people would have said, well, you know, he beat you. Whereas Andre Ward left the sport undefeated, when really I don't think he should have been undefeated. I firmly believe that Kovalev won the first fight. You know, I just don't see how Andre... Like, I think it was close, but I think it was one of those close ones where it was a bit like... It was a close one that majority of people had Kovalev winning. So, I don't know how I feel about, you know, about that fight. But anyway, that aside... Again, you know, Andre Ward said some time back that Canelo should stay away from Bivol and Beterbiev. But Canelo's jumping straight into the fire, and I think that tells you what type of fighter Canelo Alvarez is. You know, Eddie Hearn mentioned it, that he's been fighting champion after champion after champion. Canelo's not afraid of anyone. Hence why I don't know why people always look to you know, disregard his resume. Like, I got sent a video from Aki TV, actually. A video that he did, and I actually went through that video, and he was saying that, you know, this might be a cherry pick going wrong. How can you say that Canelo fighting Bivol is a cherry pick? It's clearly not a cherry pick, you know. Canelo fighting Bivol this is a proper fight. This is like a 55-45 type of fight. This is like 60-40 type of fight. This is a proper competitive fair. Canelo could lose this fight. This is a proper tough fight. This is no cherry pick. It's like, how can you say fighting a guy that's bigger than you at a higher weight class, that's a champion, is a cherry pick? It's not. Bivol is a legitimate top fighter. You know, I don't see how people think this is a cherry pick. I just can't. I can't see that logic. You know, you can't cherry pick someone that's, you know, that's so much bigger, and, you know, I just don't see it. So yeah. I don't see it, man. I don't see it. And that's just my opinion. I just think that Canelo Alvarez, I just think that his resume is surreal. And like Andre Ward said, he should stay away from them. Canelo's jumping right to them. I think that shows the character of the man. Guys, I just want to touch on a couple of minutes about the Amir Khan situation. Ben Shalom, the boxer promoter, said that Amir Khan is gonna, well, he's had discussions that Amir Khan's going to fight on. The Brook rematch is unlikely. if the Brook rematch is unlikely, I don't know why Amir Khan is going to fight on. Who's he going to fight on against? I read an article where it said that Amir Khan at this point, he's not going to get paid the money that, you know, he wants, because when you've made the kind of money he wants, you're going to want huge money. The only way I can think is if he's doing exhibition fights in Dubai or something like that, where they can put up the money. But how much of the, like, nobody wants to see, you know, when people put on events and they're paying you huge money, they want to see good fights and stuff. But at this point, Amir Khan, I don't know whether he's capable of fighting. You know, like Amir Khan, if he's going to fight way below his level, and like he did with Billy Dib and just beat guys like that, fair enough. I just don't see how Amir Khan at this point can fight anybody credible, because I just don't think it's going to end well for him. I can only see it ending badly. I can only see it ending not good for him. So I don't get why continue fighting. I don't think there's anything left to prove. I don't think he can beat Kell Brook, so there's no point of him fighting for that, because I don't think he can beat him. And I just think he's going to take more punishment. You know, Brook's a bigger, stronger guy, and he's just going to take more punishment, you know, fighting Kell Brook. I just think his attributes have diminished. Everything's gone. Like, I wouldn't even say it's diminished, it's gone, in my opinion. So I just don't see the point. I don't see what he's got to gain. I think he's had a great career. He's had a stellar career. You know, Olympic silver medalist, a former unified 140 pound champion. You know, he's beat so many world-class fighters. What does he have to prove, man? What does he really have to prove? I don't get it. I don't get the obsession. Is it the fact that he doesn't want to go out on a loss? Possibly, I don't know. But sometimes these fighters, like Amir Khan, look really, really past his best, where, you know, surely the people around him can't be urging him to fight on. And if he's not going to be against Kell Brook, who's he going to fight? Look, I don't want to see him fighting anyone young like Conor Benn or someone like that, because it's just no good. Amir Khan's had too good a career and been too gifted a fighter in his prime for him to be a step up for people. Because that was, like, if you've been a Khan fan or you've been following Khan's career, you could clearly see that Amir Khan was way, way past his best. You know, way, like, there's something called being past your best. Like, when Barrera fought Khan, he was past his best. But there's a difference between being past your best and being shot. That's like, when you're shot, that's like David Haye, like your body's falling apart. And Amir Khan had surgery, I believe, again after the fight, or he was in a sling. So what that tells me, and this is not the first time, against Crawford the same, he's having a lot of surgeries because his body relies on explosive movements. When he was in his prime, his style required a lot of, you know, there was a lot of pressure on his muscles, his joints. His style was so explosive. Those styles have a shelf life. They don't last long. You know, and as you get older, you know, with the guys that rely on athleticism, speed, movement, explosiveness, those guys tend to diminish very quickly as they get older, because their bodies start breaking down. Their bodies start suffering injuries and start breaking down. And David Haye comes to mind. Amir Khan comes to mind. You know, their styles are not long lasting. And unfortunately, neither Haye or Khan had the boxing IQ to adapt their style, because that was the way they fought. They were so naturally gifted. That was the way they fought, and that was the way they were successful. But unfortunately, as you get older, those attributes are no longer there. You know, the body starts to slow down, and you just become more of a sitting duck and a punching bag. That's what Haye was against Bellew, and effectively that was what Amir Khan was against Kell Brook. And I don't want to see him go in there and be like that, because, you know, Amir Khan was so good in his prime. So yeah, leave your thoughts, guys. Let me know what you think in the comment section below, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.